"Move it, Grandpa. You're in our spot." The voice was gravelly, thick with entitlement and cheap beer, cutting through the low murmur of the dusty roadside tavern like a rusty blade. Samuel Finch didn't flinch. At 91, he'd learned the loudest noises were often the most hollow. He slowly turned his head, his neck creaking in quiet protest, and looked up at the large man in black leather, adorned with skulls and chains, a caricature of menace, with 3 others behind him smirking in lazy, predatory confidence. Samuel's gaze was steady, neither defiant nor fearful, simply patient, like watching a storm cloud gather, knowing it would pass. He was a small man, made smaller by age, lost in a worn tweed jacket with a tarnished American flag pin on the lapel. He said softly that he didn't believe the spot had a name on it, his voice a dry whisper, which earned a humorless laugh and a threat as a thick finger jabbed toward his chest. The menace hung heavy as Samuel looked down at his gnarled, arthritic hands resting on the worn table. Hands that had built a home, held his wife and children, and once gripped a rifle in burning cold, dug trenches, and comforted dying friends. He wrapped them around the cool, condensation-slicked glass and calmly said there was no need for trouble and that the bar was nearly empty, a reasoned tone that only infuriated the biker more. The man leaned closer, growling about respect, while behind the bar Chloe watched in fearful stillness, knowing the club and sensing how wrong this felt. Samuel took a slow sip of water, an unhurried act of defiance, and the biker finally snapped, shoving the table so it slammed into Samuel's chest and sent him backward, his glass shattering as he caught himself on the floor without a cry. Laughter erupted as the leader bragged and claimed the table, kicking broken glass, while Chloe felt fear and fury surge as she watched Samuel painfully push himself up, the cuff of his jacket sliding back to reveal a small faded tattoo, a shield crossed by a lightning bolt and dagger precise and professional. A clue that didn't fit the frail old man. The impact rattled more than his bones, dissolving the tavern into ice, blood, and wind as memory dragged him back to Chosin Reservoir, North Korea, December 1950, when a shove from Corporal Jensen saved him from a mortar blast, leaving Jensen gone and no time to mourn as waves of enemies advanced through snow, bugles wailing, cut off, freezing, and ordered to hold at all costs. Samuel, then a young sergeant, looked at the frostbitten faces of his men and felt the same calm he felt now. Accepting his life was no longer entirely his own. He took up a Browning automatic rifle, ordered his men to fall back, and held alone for 6 hours, firing until the barrel glowed, buying them time minute by minute, until the world went white and black. He blinked and returned to the grimy tavern floor. The cold just a draft, the laughter just beer noise. As he got one knee under him, aching, seen only as an old man who had fallen, though for a moment he had been Sergeant Finch again, holding the line, while Chloe's hands shook as she reached for her phone. Knowing she had to do something, and watching him pull himself back into a, Chloe remembered the tattoo, the shield, the lightning bolt, the dagger, and though it was a long shot and a crazy idea, her grandfather's voice echoed in her mind, telling her that if you ever see a soldier in trouble, you call the nearest base because they take care of their own. The nearest base was Fort Carson, 40 minutes away. And with her heart hammering, she quickly Googled the public number for the main gate, wondering what she could possibly say and certain they might laugh at her, yet knowing she had to try. A gruff voice answered, identifying himself as the command staff sergeant on duty, and Chloe nervously explained that she was at a bar off Highway 24 where an elderly man, a veteran she believed, was being harassed by a biker gang. She was told it was a civilian matter and to call the sheriff, but she insisted there was something different about him, describing the flag pin and the tattoo on his wrist, a shield with a lightning bolt and a dagger. After a long silence broken only by static, the voice returned, changed, sharp and focused, demanding an exact description, pressing her to confirm the tattoo, followed by more silence and frantic typing. Before the sergeant introduced himself as Staff Sergeant Graham and urgently instructed her not to let the man leave, to keep him safe because help was on the way, not the sheriff. When the line went dead, Chloe stared at her phone as Jax, the biker leader, mocked Samuel by holding up his fallen flag pin and sneering, while Samuel quietly said a friend had given it to him. Chloe waited, sensing something was about to change. As a deep rhythmic pulse grew in the distance, unnoticed at first, then louder, vibrating the floorboards until everyone turned toward the windows and realized a helicopter was descending. Dust and gravel erupted outside as a UH-60 Blackhawk landed in the parking lot. Soldiers in full combat gear spilling out to form a precise perimeter, followed by a tall, broad-shouldered major general in dress uniform who strode toward the tavern with purpose. Inside the silent bar, his gaze swept the room and settled on Samuel Finch. And at that sight his commanding presence softened into reverence as he walked past the bikers, stopped before Samuel, and rendered a crisp salute, addressing him with profound respect. Jax stared in disbelief as Samuel slowly stood and acknowledged General Morrison, after which the general finally took in the shattered glass and the bikers shrinking before him, his warm eyes turning cold as he asked what had happened. Chloe found her voice and pointed at Jax, explaining they had shoved Samuel and knocked him down over a table. As the general's authority filled the room, "A misunderstanding," General Morrison repeated, the words dripping with contempt as he stepped closer, and Jax instinctively stepped back, telling him the misunderstanding was his and asking if he had any idea who Samuel was. While one biker muttered he was just some old guy and immediately regretted it under the general's arctic gaze, Morrison echoed the words and explained the pin Jax mocked was a presidential unit citation awarded to the survivors of Task Force Faith at the chosen reservoir. An army unit surrounded, outnumbered 10-1, fighting 5 days in 30 below zero weather, where fewer than 400 of 3,200 men came out able to fight. He placed a hand on Samuel's shoulder and explained that Samuel had been a sergeant in that unit who on the final day single-handedly held off an enemy company for 6 hours with a Browning automatic rifle so his men could escape, was wounded 3 times, and was found unconscious beside more than 50 enemy dead, earning the Distinguished Service Cross and a lost recommendation for the Medal of Honor. He explained the wrist tattoo was the insignia of a classified special operations unit Samuel volunteered for in Vietnam, and that Samuel had bled more for the country than the bikers ever would, crushing them with the weight of his words as Jax finally understood. The calm eyes before him were not weakness, but the peace of a man who had survived annihilation. Morrison revealed his own father was one of the men Samuel saved and that he had come that very day to finally present the Medal of Honor, finding Samuel instead humiliated, breaking Jax completely as he dropped the flag pin in shame. Morrison offered to take Samuel back to base with a full honor guard, but Samuel calmly chose to finish his water, looking at Jax with profound pity, while the general warned the bikers to leave town and spend their lives trying to be half the man they disrespected. After the soldiers departed and the helicopter lifted away, the tavern fell quiet as Samuel sat calmly and Jax stood humiliated, abandoned by his friends, before approaching Samuel to apologize. Samuel invited him to sit and quietly explained that strength was not noise or intimidation but endurance, sacrifice, and protecting others, telling Jax that nothing owned or taken could make him strong and that the real fight was inside. Samuel paid for his water, smiled kindly at Chloe, and walked out to where a general and a Medal of Honor waited, leaving behind a reminder that the world mistakes quiet for weakness, that heroes often wear tweed jackets instead of uniforms, and that legends walk among us unnoticed, deserving of respect, because we never know whose presence we are standing in. quiet dignity rebuking the biker's loud victory.